يا هلا 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the program. It is a Wednesday morning, a beautiful day at that, and lovely to welcome you to the program. I do hope you'll keep us company right up until 10. And on Let's Talk this morning, lots of interesting things coming your way. We're going to be talking about 4D scans. We're also going to be talking multiple births, and then we're going to talk about the 25th anniversary of the Institute for the Advancement of Journalism, the IAJ. So as you can see, very diverse but very interesting topics. We hope you are going to agree with us. And let's kick off right away by talking about the importance of 4D scans. What are they? Why do you need them? And how does it perhaps give more information to the pregnant couple? And to talk to us about scans and a whole host of other things is the lovely Nasreen Ali. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Lovely to have you here in the studio.
Jazakallah for having me.
And I guess what we're going to talk about is something important.
Yes, definitely.
And very definitely very interesting as well. Now, you call yourself an obstetric sonographer.
Yes.
What is that, and how different is it to a radiographer?
Okay. It is a radiographer. I studied radiography many years ago. Back in 2007, I qualified. I started out as a diagnostic radiographer. I qualified from the University of Johannesburg. I then went on to do my degree in nuclear medicine, which is another specialty field of radiography. And then after that, I went on to further my studies into courses in ultrasound and mainly focusing on obstetrics. It's different to a normal radiographer in the terms of a normal diagnostic radiographer would take the normal x-rays that you get when you break your leg or you hurt your arm and you need to go in for an x-ray. Nuclear medicine, on the other hand, deals with isotopes and radiation, which I'm also qualified in. And then obstetric ultrasound is mainly focusing on ultrasound using your probe, and I focus mainly on pregnant ladies and fetal ultrasonography.
So clearly you have a deep love for babies.
I do. And that is actually why I went on to do ultrasound. It always appealed to me throughout my career as a diagnostic radiographer and in nuclear medicine. I always felt that I was lacking somehow in my career, and I wanted to go into this field because it's so exciting, and I'm a maternal person. So I enjoyed looking at babies on the screen and seeing what they get up to inside of the womb. It appealed to me.
So you clearly have found your niche.
Definitely.
Let's look at the issue around scans, the importance of scans. You touched on nuclear medicine and nuclear radiography. And of course, immediately what comes to mind is cancers.
Definitely.
Radioactive waves, etc. We've been told that they do cause cancers depending on the degree of the cancers.
Yes.
Now, when we look at scans and scanning a pregnant mommy, are there any risks of radio waves, radioactive waves, perhaps affecting mom or baby?
Okay, absolutely not. We do not deal with any radiation in ultrasound. It's using sound waves as opposed to radiation, which we use in nuclear medicine and in diagnostic radiography. So there's absolutely no risk to mom or the baby in any way, because this is a complete different level of scanning. We're using sound waves, and sound waves pass through the uterus to the unborn baby, so posing no risk to the mom or the child. So there's been studies that's been proven that ultrasound's perfectly safe, and it's a very important diagnostic tool that is used in obstetrics and gynecology for us to be able to detect abnormalities in the unborn fetus.
Now, I know that in the past, way back in the day, before we had become as advanced as we are now, never mind 2D scans, we're now talking 4D scans, and that obviously has opened up a whole new world as far as obstetrics and gynecology is concerned. But as I say, back in the day, and probably it still is very much in use today as well, is when mom or doctor wanted to check that all's well with baby, they did a procedure called the amniocentesis. Am I right?
Yes.
That also came with the risk, obviously.
Yes.
How is this different? Because you suggested that if they want to check if the medical practitioner or mom wants to be absolutely certain that all is well with the baby, you'd go the 4D scan route. What is it going to show you that the amnio is not going to show you?
Okay, amniocentesis is something completely different in terms of a little bit of amniotic fluid is taken out of the uterus, and it poses a risk of miscarriage to the mom and to the baby. So it's quite invasive. The mom has to go under a little bit of anesthetic, and a needle's put into her belly. A little bit of fluid is drawn out, and then that fluid is sent for tests to a lab, and the results are then given back to the mom. With ultrasound, that is non-invasive at all. It's completely non-invasive. It's just basically a probe with a little bit of gel that we rub over the mommy's tummy, and we're then able to see the little fetus that's growing inside there, and we're able to see the organs of the fetus as well as the organs of the mummy, and we're able to tell if there's any abnormalities, if the pregnancy is progressing in a normal manner. So it's non-invasive at all and poses no risk or no threat of miscarriage. So it's a wonderful tool. It's such a brilliant tool, and it's at our disposal, and it's not actually expensive as compared to an amniocentesis, and which poses so much of risk. And an amnio will also not reveal to you if there's any structural deformities with the unborn baby. As with ultrasound, we're able to actually view the bones, we're able to view various organs, we're able to view everything in the unborn baby.
And you are able to tell that everything is growing as per normal.
Yes.
Is there a chance, the slight chance, let's assume this is 99.9% correct, and that 0.1%, is there that chance of something going undetected via the 4D scan, and why would that be?
Okay, so basically, let's break it up into 2D ultrasound and then 4D ultrasound. With 2D ultrasound, there's always a chance that something can go undetected, as with an amniocentesis as well. In medical field, I suppose nothing is 100%, and obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His infinite mercy knows why certain things go wrong. So there is also it depends on the scanner's the way the scanner will interpret the scan, their level of expertise and their experience. So there's always a chance that something can go undetected. It's never 100%. But in terms of ruling out major abnormalities, it's quite accurate. It's something that should be done in every pregnancy. I always advise that at least a minimum of 3 basic 2D ultrasounds are done throughout a 9-month pregnancy. One in the first trimester, one in mid-pregnancy, and one in late pregnancy, just to make sure that the fetus is growing well, that we can focus on all these structures in the unborn baby, and make sure that everything's okay with the mommy and how the body is preparing for her birth.
Okay, we're going to look at just in the instance where you pick up that something is wrong with baby, right. How you then, how do you break the bad or sad news to mom, which must be very distressing not only to mom but to you as the practitioner as well. But let's look at that after the ad break. I'm talking to Nasreen Ali. She is a obstetric sonographer. She's talking about 4D scans. I think back in the day there were 2D scans. I can't even remember in my day if there were scans. I don't think so. And just look how medicine and technology has advanced. It's amazing that the young people have so much of information at their fingertips. And I think if you are pregnant, then I can't even begin to imagine how easy and fulfilling things must be with all of this amazing array of information at your fingertips. Let's take an ad break. We'll be back to continue talking to the lovely Nasreen Ali. And if you have any questions or comments, lines will be open throughout the show. We're talking 4D scans with Nasreen Ali, and if you have any questions or comments, please do call on the open line. Now, Nasreen, I asked you a question before the ad break. When you pick up that something's wrong, for example, with baby, I'm sure it's very distressing for you, but how do you break this very distressing news to mom? How do you prepare her?
Okay, it depends on the level of the abnormality. Sometimes the level of abnormality is not that great. It's something that can be resolved at a later stage when the baby is born, or I would, as a sonographer, refer her back to her gynecologist, and I will ask the gynecologist then to get involved and perhaps counsel her and let her know that this is what is going on with your baby, and then let the gynecologist also give a second opinion as to what is wrong with the unborn fetus, because we are radiographers. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're not there to counsel the patient. We're there to do the scan, and then the gynecologist will then take over, because obviously their level of education and expertise supersede ours at that point. So I would then just refer her. I would tell her I did see something. I would try and calm her, and then let the gynecologist
kind of prepare her,
yes,
but not distress her too much.
Too much, and let the gynecologist handle it from there on.
What sort of abnormalities would you pick up? Give us some examples.
Okay, so again, it depends on which trimester the mom is at. The first trimester, we said we'd like to do a scan, and that scan is done at 12 weeks. It's an important scan that I always advocate moms to do. It's called a nuchal translucency scan, and it can only be done at 12 weeks. This scan here, we look at a nuchal fold that develops at the back of the baby, and we measure this nuchal fold, and it's a very clear indication at which point your baby will fall into a high-risk category for Down syndrome. So that is a measurement that we do only at 12 weeks. If we find that the mom is in a danger zone, and we look at a number of factors, her age, the nuchal fold measurement, and her blood tests, and then we see at which category she falls into. It does not mean that your nuchal fold measurement is out of range, so your baby is definitely going to have Down syndrome. It's just going to basically alert us that this mom falls into high-risk category, and from there on we send her for more tests and perhaps an amniocentesis in that stage.
This 12-week scan that you insist that moms go for, is it only to pick up for Down syndrome or other issues as well?
At 12 weeks we can cram quite a bit. It should actually be one of the scans. If a mom is in financial difficulty and she can't just afford a scan, we would say go for your 12-week scan. At that point we want to look at a heartbeat. We want to make sure baby has a nice strong heartbeat. We're going to measure that nuchal fold, and we're going to do a growth scan as well, all in one. The growth scan is going to give her estimated due date, the estimated fetal weight, and it will then look at the baby from head to toe and see.
How accurate is that?
The estimated due date actually is quite accurate. We work with last menstrual period, and then we do measurements on ultrasound. We do the crown rump length, where we measure from the crown of the head to the rump of the baby, and that gives us a clear indication with size as to when mom would give birth. So it does actually fall quite close to the days that mom is going to give birth. It's quite close. And then, so all of that can be crammed into your 12-week scan. The next important scan that moms should go for is your 20-week anomaly scan. At 20 weeks, the baby is fully formed. The major organs are formed. So at this point, baby is just going to now grow and get fatter as the pregnancy progresses.
And what do you look for? You also abnormalities in terms of all of the major organs.
Then organs are looked at. We look at the brain development. We look at the heart development. We look for coronary heart defects. We look at brain defects. We look at the digestive system. We look for things like omphalocele, which Omphalocele is when the intestines are actually growing out of the baby's tummy. Those are major abnormalities.
Let's assume that you come across something like that. Obviously, you alert the gynecologist immediately.
Yes.
What sort of intervention can they do at that point to probably fix? Because I do know that these days they're able to perform operations while baby's still in mom's tummy.
Yes.
Are they able to do that?
It would depend on the severity. With gastroschisis and omphalocele, they would probably wait until the baby is a little bit big, or the baby is born, I would think, and then they would perform the procedure at that point when baby is born. I don't think they would actually go on to do an intrauterine procedure. In South Africa, intrauterine procedures haven't really been perfected as yet. In America and in those places, they're doing a lot of intrauterine operative procedures. But in South Africa, I think there's still a little bit of hesitation when it comes to operating on mommy while she's still pregnant. So there, I think it would be a gynecologist would basically have a better answer for you there than myself. But other things that we also look at a 20-week scan, which all mommies want to know, is gender of the baby. Somehow,
and at that point, you're able to give them the
we are
info.
actually able to give it a little bit sooner, but it's a little bit sooner, it's still a little bit iffy. It can still go either way. But at 20 weeks, the genitals are fully formed. And we can then tell mom and dad if it's a girl or a boy. And parents these days are so eager to know what they're having. And with technology, why not? So at that point, we can say it's a girl baby or it's a boy baby. And many moms and dads want to know that at that point. Another thing that a 20-week scan looks at is it looks at the kidneys. We look at kidneys for hydronephrosis, which is a condition of the kidneys which don't allow the baby to urinate properly. And those are things that we look at. We look at major abnormalities.
And all of this is picked up at 20 weeks?
This is all picked up at 20 weeks. So this is an important scan. This is another important scan that we say moms should go for. It's a scan that's going to tell you if everything's progressing well with baby, and it's something that shouldn't be looked upon lightly. If there is something wrong, even if nothing can be done at that point, it's always best to know so that a mom can be counseled. So when baby is born, she's not shocked as what is wrong with my baby, and she's completely surprised. At that point, we can counsel mom and say something is wrong, but these are the steps we're going to take when baby is born to fix baby, to heal baby, and it just gives you a whole, and it also allows you to know how the pregnancy is going to progress further, because obviously if there's an abnormality with the baby, the pregnancy goes into high risk.
Would that mean then that if you've picked up some form of abnormality in the pregnancy at that point in time, that you'd have to do more regular scans going forward?
Definitely. You would do more regular scans. The mom would be watched more carefully. The gynae would take more of an interest in the mom, and her pregnancy will then be termed high risk because that fetus now is at high risk. So definitely.
If all goes well, you have your final scan at what point?
At the final scan, gynaes will scan right up until 38 weeks before baby is just born. But obviously, if mom doesn't have that, like I say again, time or financial constraints, the last scan should be done at least between 36 and 38 weeks. At that point, we can see if baby's turned, baby's engaged, the baby's not breech. We can look at amniotic fluid index to make sure that the baby still has enough fluid around the baby, which is an important factor. And we look at the placenta to make sure that no calcifications are located in the placenta, because calcifications in the placenta means that the placenta is now aging, which is not good for baby, because placenta supplies baby with oxygen, with nutrients. So at that point, we look at all of those factors. But before that, we do the fun thing, which is the 4D scan. And that's also one of my major things that I focus on, is the 4D scanning.
What's so special about the 4D scan? And we've almost come to the end of the interview, so let's look at the difference between a 2D, and a 4D scan.
Okay, so a 2D scan is the normal black and white scan which we talked about. The 4D scan is the scan that we look at the face of the baby.
Oh, wow.
So we have some beautiful images of facial images of the baby. So this is very exciting for the mom and dad because it's a bonding experience for them. It's an experience where the dads normally don't feel the kicks, they don't bond. But in the 4D, they get to see their baby's face. They get to see the baby play, yawn, smile. It's I always say it's a womb with a view.
Wow.
Because you get to actually see your baby kick, yawn, smile in real time. And this is what we do at the 4D ultrasound studio. We allow parents to watch their baby in real time, and it also rules out some anomalies. Example for a cleft lip, which is the split lip. We're able to focus on the face of the baby, nose, and moms and dads often have fun at the 4D scan. The baby has your nose, the baby has my eyes.
And how long does this whole procedure take? About a half an hour?
Yes, it's a 30-minute session.
Okay.
And but it requires a lot of patience. Sometimes the baby will move and give us the most beautiful picture. And at other times the baby will just take a really long time to move and has hands over the face and is curled up in a fetal
long nap.
Exactly, and you've got to have a lot of patience to be able to get that perfect picture. But it's exciting for parents. It's a wonderful tool. It's something again that the technology has given us, and we should make use of this tool because it's something that's so exciting.
Through the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Of course.
We need to wrap up now, but very quickly, can you pick up if anything's wrong with mom? And can you then alert her and the gynae that something's not right here through the 4D scans?
Yes, through 4D, through 2D, we can, if something is, with 4D, not because we're focusing on baby. We're focusing on baby's face, baby's images. With 2D, most definitely, if something like placenta previa, which is the placenta covering the cervix, then we're able to tell mom that something is now wrong with you, the pregnancy, and you're not going to be able to have a normal birth if the placenta previa does not resolve, and you're going to have to go on to having a Caesar. So those are things, yes, that ultrasound does pick up on.
Does help you prepare for the birth.
Definitely.
All right. I do know you in private practice. Tell us where can people get hold of you?
They can get hold of me through my website or through my email or my cell phone number, which can be given, or I can give it to people.
Give us your website.
Yes, it's www.4dultrasoundstudio.co.za, and my pricing guidelines and everything with regards to 4D will all be found on my website.
And you are based in Lenasia,
I am
Johannesburg.
based in Protea Medical Center in Lenasia.
Lovely talking to you, and no doubt all the pregnant mommies watching us this morning are pretty excited, and they can obviously identify with what you're talking about.
Definitely.
Thank you for sharing that with us, and go well.
Jazakallah.
Nasreen Ali talking to us about 4D scans, and of course a very exciting time in the lives of pregnant couples. Still to come, we're going to be talking multiple births, and thereafter we're going to be talking about the 25th anniversary of the Institute for the Advancement of Journalism. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's a Wednesday morning. You're with me, Julie Alli, on Let's Talk, and we're still talking babies. This time around, we're talking multiple births with Marion Smith, who is a mom of twins herself, and I guess that's what has propelled her in this line of work. And of course, when you talk twins, it has that cute factor attached to it. I've always wanted twins. I prayed for twins, but it didn't happen. Marion, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Lovely to have you here. Now, you know, like I said, when you talk about multiple births, when you talk about twins, everyone just kind of go mushy, and it's so cute and exciting. But I should imagine at the same time overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, I think, especially if it's your first birth, if it's your first set of children. I think it's a lot more work. Moms who've had single children beforehand, it's a lot easier for them. But then they say that if you've had two babies, well, you don't need more after that.
Now, obviously, I know that this is just one of your sidelines. You've got a very, very full life. You do a whole host of other stuff, real work in the real world. But this is a passion of yours because you yourself are a mother of twins. When you realized you're going to be giving birth to twins, how did you react to that? And is that why you've come out with a magazine and a whole host of other information?
Well, I was shocked. It took quite a while before I found out I was expecting twins. The gynae didn't pick it up immediately, so only after I think about the second or third visit did they pick it up. The one of my twins was hiding behind the bigger one. So I actually ran to the bathroom and I was crying. I didn't know what to do because I've got two other boys also. So it was a state of shock. But once it settled in, it was obviously excitement, and the other boys were very happy to know we were having two more boys. So once that sunk in, you get on and you do it. And that led to me joining the Multiple Birth Association and sharing my experiences with other parents and helping them, because it is overwhelming and everyone has different challenges. And from that, I started the magazine because...
Just show that up to our camera.
So this was actually our 5-year anniversary edition that came out this year. So this is all the covers.
Okay.
This is just one of the other editions. So you can see some of the topics that we cover, knowing how UIF works, because a lot of multiples are conceived via UIF. But statistically, we have multiples from the age of 35 upwards. Women stand a better chance of having multiples, or if they've had previous births like I had in that case. Questions to ask your nanny when you're interviewing. And then this was a very sad story of multiples that we were supporting. And then this is just another one. These are actually my multiples, my boys, last Christmas. And then, for example, come Christmas time, one of the topics is what gifts to buy my boys for Christmas, or any time of the year, birthdays, anything, because parents are under the impression, should I buy always two of the same thing? And no, you don't need two soccer balls. You need one soccer ball because they need to learn how to share. So the purpose of this magazine was actually to give parents guidance.
So is this available in at newsagents, or is this a special magazine which you subscribe to in a special way?
So what we do is we have the Multiple Birth Association, South African Multiple Birth Association, and via the membership of that association, the members have access to this magazine. So on our website, they would get a membership number and they can then read it via the PDF and download it, or they can get a hard copy. So if they attend our seminars, they get a hard copy. There's various instances, but it's not available to the general public because obviously it's something for the members to receive.
You talk about seminars, and I'm wondering, I should imagine it's very, very informative, very especially for parents of multiple births or multiple children, twins, etc. What about other parents, who don't have twins or triplets, but would like to attend? Because I'm sure there's very relevant information for pregnant parents or parents.
So I hold the seminars twice a year, aimed at specifically at multiple parents, because the topics covered are geared towards that. So how to breastfeed multiples, for example, is different to breastfeeding a singleton. A dad does a talk for us on how dads need to be involved with raising multiples. There's another lady who talks on the kangaroo care and skin-to-skin advantages. We have someone else who talks on sleep benefits. But then in the middle of the year in June, I hold a seminar specifically aimed at parents expecting children, and that's general. So that is where parents of singletons come, and I usually hold that at the Radisson Hotel in Sandton, and that's a very big seminar. And then that is general, as in just breastfeeding. So twin parents can attend, but singletons.
You tell me that this is just one of your sidelines, and this stemmed from the fact that you have twins. But to me, it sounds like a full-time job. You hold seminars, you're involved in the magazine, and I have no doubt that you'd also work on the website and post a lot of information and answer questions, etc.
It is time-consuming, but I think, it's once you have a recipe. For example, the seminars are a recipe. So once that is set, it takes place every year. You know, it's a lot easier to manage once you've created that recipe. Same with a magazine. It's, you know, it's a structured setup. So it's a lot of work, but I do manage it, and I'm a very structured person. So I do fit it in. It has moments.
But obviously you need to be interested, and you have to have a love,
passion.
yes, for something like this to put your all into it.
Yeah.
Let's look at the issue around, I asked you a question off air just now, and that was the incidence of twins or multiple births around the world. You suggested that it is growing. Why?
There's definitely been a very large increase in multiple births, and it's got a lot to do with fertility treatments. That would be the first reason. And the second reason is that women are having children a lot later in life. And that is because they are now on the job market. Statistically, women used to stay at home and the men went to work. Now women are having to contribute to the household income, and with that they're needing to create a career. So they're leaving school, they're going to university, they're buying a house, buying a car, building a career, and then they're saying, right, financially we are stable now, we can have children, because they want to maybe send them to better schooling, better universities. But they've reached that age where they might struggle to have children. So they are now having fertility treatments. And that is why there's an increase.
That comes at a cost, does it not?
It does, yes. It's very expensive. And there are a lot of clinics in Johannesburg. Johannesburg does have the highest rate, from what I understand. And second to that, we found our numbers are the second highest in Cape Town.
I also understand that somewhere in Africa, was it Nigeria? It's in Nigeria.
Yes.
They have the highest incidence of natural multiple births. Do we know why?
There's a town in Nigeria that has the highest rate, and they contributed to eating yams.
Oh my word.
So there is a huge number of natural births, of multiples, and there's also a town in India that has, if you look it up, they've got a huge amount of multiples.
And the reason for...
both of them are statistically rating it to the food they eat, because of course there's no fertility treatment in either of these towns, and they put it down to what they have discovered at the age of 35, women and multiple births. So they've had previous children, and it just passes down the genes. It's not true that if you've got multiples in your family, your chance is higher of having multiples. That is not a true fact.
Okay,
Yeah.
Let's take an ad break, and when we get back we'll continue talking about multiple births and a whole host more.
All right.
Marion Smith is my guest. She's the mother of a set of twins, and of course after the shock when she heard she was expecting twins, when she then pulled herself together and decided that she needs to do research and prepare herself for her twins, she realized that I think there are a whole host of other moms out there, or parents for that matter, that need support and need information to help them through this time. Yes, it's cute, yes, it's exciting, but I think it also means that much more investment in your babies, more time, more work, and simply put, double trouble. Stay with us. I'm talking to Marion Smith. She is the mother of twins, a set of twins, but we are talking about the highs and lows of being parents of twins or triplets. It does have the cute factor, but it does come with loads and loads and loads of work. So, Marion, what would you, and I know it's different from family to family, but some of the challenges you faced raising your twins, or even whilst you were pregnant, how difficult was it as, compared to, when you were carrying a single baby?
I think I was very fortunate. I carried mine almost full term, but a lot of moms don't. They need bed rest, and they need to slow down, especially if they're carrying triplets. They don't carry full term, and they just have to slow down to avoid any complications. You also, if you've got other children, you have to teach them that there's going to be a lot more attention coming into the household, because everybody wants to see these twins. You also have to learn how to juggle, everything.
Because if you don't prepare the other children, there's going to be a lot of resentment.
Yes, they're
and
going to
feeling
resent
that they've been
them.
left out in the cold.
Because 2 children do automatically take up so much more time as opposed to 1. There's going to always be 1 crying, and they just do. You've got 2 babies in your arms. They take up much more space. Financially, they cost so much more than 1 child costs. So the constraints in the household are so much bigger.
So apart from the cute factor, and I keep talking cute factor because they
Very
are so cute,
yes.
there's a big cost involved as well, because there are certain moms or certain parents who just cannot deal with possibly 2 babies wanting to be fed at the same time, crying at the same time, being dressed at the same time, etc. Lots and lots and lots of sleepless nights. If you don't have the support structure, you're going to have to think about getting a domestic help at night or a night nurse. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I always suggest to the moms, everyone wants to help you in the day. There's loads of help in the day. Family come in, the neighbours come in, everybody wants to offer in the day. But somehow,
and capitalise on it.
Oh yes, but somehow at night time everyone disappears and that's when you want to sleep. And a mom who slept well, she can cope in the day and she can look after her babies. So to me, help at night is essential. So what we do is we suggest that a night nurse or a night nanny is what you get. So ideally, that person works a 12-hour shift. They work 6 to 6 or 7 to 7. Those are the time slots. And they earn, for twins, roughly 350 Rand a night. And that includes her transport money. She can do everything in that time from bathing, if it fits into her routine, the mom's routine that she may have set up. She feeds the babies, she changes the nappies.
But what if babies are being breastfed?
If the baby's being breastfed, you can still have one of these ladies. The mom sleeps and she will say to the night nanny, I want you to wake me up at 10 o'clock at night. Then the nurse will go and wake the mom up. She comes and feeds, but then she gives the babies over to the lady who still burps them, because that's time consuming, changes the nappies, and now has to put them back to sleep. So it still cuts the mom's awake time up drastically.
Would it be an option to express milk and then have the nanny or whoever is helping you to bottle feed the babies, or not go that route if you can avoid it?
It's not recommended because a lot of people would say you're going to have that nipple confusion. So if the mom is exclusively breastfeeding, allow her to continue doing that. But just by having that extra help, she's not going to be awake as long. So she's literally going to feed and hand those babies over. And the nurse does it. The confusion for a lot of people is they don't understand the difference between a night nurse and a night nanny. A nurse is a qualified person, and she's only required if you've got complications. So maybe your babies were in ICU or they've got problems, and they can demand premiums of up to 450 Rand a night. But if there were no problems, you only need a night nanny, and she is a care worker type candidates. They all wear care worker uniforms at night. They do not wear their civilian clothes. They've got first aid training, and they do basic sleep courses, and they know how to sleep train your babies.
Oh, wow.
And they can work anything from 1 night a week up to 7 nights a week. So it works on whatever a family wants and what they can afford.
Of course, of course. What about those families who cannot afford a night nanny? How do they cope? And let's assume both babies are very niggly, or maybe one is more difficult than the other. How does this poor mom cope?
For those that can't afford it, because it is an expensive item to have a night nanny, it's not cheap if you add up your 350s.
Sure.
The other option is to get a sleep consultant, where she comes in and it's a once-off, and she will explain to the moms how to sleep train the babies. And there's different sleep consultants who have different methods. So the mom has to find a method that she prefers and that works for her.
I think this option is great, not only for twins
For
or
everybody.
triplets. If you have a baby that is just finds it very difficult, is a very poor sleeper, is giving you sleepless nights, consult with a sleep consultant, and hopefully we'll have one of those on the show sometime soon. Hopefully you can refer us to someone.
Yes. I think moms actually bring in sleep consultants even when the children are teething, when they're a bit older. They go through phases. They sleep and they don't sleep. So that is the option, and it's to train the mom on how to train the children to sleep.
Let's look at facts and myths and challenges around multiple babies. Your own experience and what you've picked up over the years, the do's and the don'ts. Share some of that information with us.
I think one of the big things that's always the moms are overwhelmed and they're excited at the same time to hear they're expecting multiples. So the first thing is, let's do up a nursery. Let's go shopping, because it's always fun to shop, and let's make it look beautiful. And they overspend like you can't believe.
Overshop.
Wow. I mean, women love shopping,
Right.
and it's great, and we all want to have beautiful nurseries. We see these pictures in magazines, and that's what we want. And the babies come along, they've got these two beautiful wooden cots. For the first 3 months or so, the babies actually don't sleep in separate cots. They've been in your womb together. So you can't suddenly put them in gigantic cots apart.
Okay.
So one cot actually sits alone and empty, because these babies need to be together.
What about this mom who doesn't know better and puts them into separate cots? Are they going to be fussing
Start
a
of
lot?
your sleep issues.
Okay.
So they should be sleeping together to start off. Second to that is they overshop with bottles, they overshop with clothing, because you don't know if you're going to have prem babies. You don't know what bottles type your baby likes. The one might like one brand and the other might like the other brand. So we always say wait until the babies come before you test them, and then find out if the baby wants a specific brand. Second to that is also they grow so quickly. So the moms really overshop. Also the prams. Prams nowadays can cost well over 30,000 range for twin prams, the imported prams. And the moms don't think of, is this going to fit in my car? If you have triplets, for example, you very seldom go out on your own with your triplets, very, very seldom. So why would you buy a pram of that value if you're not going to go out on your own? It's going to fit at home.
I should imagine that they're very good quality and good condition, second-hand baby paraphernalia on the net, for example. Not necessarily clothes, but all the hardware, the prams, the cots, and so forth, car seats.
We don't recommend ever buying second-hand car seats, because if they've been in an accident, they can be damaged.
Okay.
But we do, the Multiple Births Facebook page has a second-hand Facebook page where you can find prams that are literally brand new, and baths, seats and chairs to sit in, and sleep bags and all sorts of things, breast pumps. You can find anything you want, because the moms spend far too much money. And there are some fantastic prams on the market. And for example, there's a Bugaboo pram that is a fantastic item. They fold up really small, they're handy, and they've got a good resale value. The moms that can afford prams like that should get something that they can sell and get their money back. The moms that don't have that kind of budget, the places like Toys R Us have got the cheaper products that they can fit, and they're small and they fold. Because when you buy a pram, you shouldn't go into the store and go, wow, that pram's great, I like the look of that pram.
What do you look for?
You need to know, does that fit into the boot of my car? Because these prams are bigger than normal prams. When I put that pram into my car, can I still put my shopping into the car? There's also safety issues to consider. How long will it take me to put my children, 2 children, into their car seats? The pram is left standing, I'm on my own in a parking lot, and fold this pram down and put my shopping in. So it's all those things to take into consideration. Is this a quick, easy pram to fold down and put my 2 children into a car seat now?
Little things, but very
Little
important
things like
to know.
that moms are not aware of when they're expecting multiples, because they're looking at the prettiness of items. They're also, when they go to these big events and shows, companies look and they see, oh, you're expecting multiples, this is money. This is money. Oh, you need 2 of these. You need 2 of these. You do not need 2 of these. And most of those items you actually don't need. Wait until your children come and see what you need that's specifically aimed at your household and your needs. Maybe you're not a mom who carries your babies on you. So why would you buy a carrier? You know, there's a lot of things like that.
We've got 2 minutes to wrap up time. Let's look at the importance of gifts. People are always overwhelmed when they've got to buy gifts for twins. Should they be exactly the same thing? Can you opt not to give babies a gift and rather give mom a gift and spoil her in the situation? And what about dressing kids identically?
Well, I would always say a mom always needs nappies. Multiples go through, the amount of nappies they go through is unbelievable. So everyone should arrive with a packet of nappies for the mom. Second to that, yes, the mom will need some spoiling, because she's going to need sleep and she needs to sleep well. So spoil that mom. And I would say find out what that mom specifically needs, and don't buy two of the same outfits. Allow the babies to be individuals. They are individual human beings. They didn't choose to come into the world as a twin or a triplet. They each have their own name and their own identification, and even if they are identical twins, they are Johnny and Paul. Let them be Johnny and Paul and not the twins.
Anything else of importance that you have to share before I let you go?
Well, for anybody who would want support and advice, I would say go to the Multiple Birth Association website. It is an organisation that's there to offer support to anybody and advice. The Facebook page is there for everybody in South Africa to join and offer advice and to meet other moms in their same boat.
Marion Smith, lovely to have you on the show. We are going to get you back in because I know you're an avid traveller. Turkey is close to your heart, so there's lots more we can talk about, but next time. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Marion Smith, the mother of twins herself and also involved on the Multiple Birth website or society, and anything you need to know about multiple births, just Google the website and you'll have all of the information and hopefully the support you need. Stay with us. The two lovely ladies from the IAJ are here to talk about a big event, the 25th anniversary of the Institute for the Advancement of Journalism, and they're also going to be talking to us about a whole host more. Welcome back. We now have Amina Frenzy and Faiza Abrams in studio with us. They both were the Institute for the Advancement of Journalism, and they're here to talk about their roles in this amazing organization. I think they do some amazing work, but I'll let the ladies unpack all of that for us. Amina Frenzy and Faiza Abrams, welcome. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, Amina, I know that you are a journalist by profession, and I also know that you spent many years at the SABC as a journalist and a producer. Fill in some of those empty gaps for us.
Well, I didn't start off at the SABC. I joined the SABC in 1994 with the first democratic elections. But prior to that, I was a foreign correspondent and documentary filmmaker working for foreign networks such as German television, and BBC. So basically that is my background. I've retired from the SABC about 2 years ago, and one of my roles here that's relevant is that I'm the chairperson of the Institute for the Advancement of Journalism, which, as you know, is a tertiary training institution, and we do customized training for journalists, mid-career journalists, for corporates, for politicians, for unionists, for young adults as well, to make the transition from school into media. So we do all kinds of things, but more about that later.
What an exciting life. Oh my word, stunning. Faiza, welcome, lovely to have you here. And you are the Executive Director at the IAJ. And of course, I should imagine there's somewhat of a media background there as well. How have you become involved here? Tell us your story.
I've worked in banking in the 80s.
Okay.
Barclays Bank then. After 3 years, I left banking and I went into an NGO under the Health Education Welfare Trust, where we trained adults taking care of foundation years, working with preschoolers. We developed alternative curriculum. And then in 1992, the Institute was launched, January, I joined the Institute.
As?
I took a job as a receptionist. I felt I wanted a break from the rat race and just a break. Within 2 months, I became the training coordinator of the Institute. I've done that until 1999. Then we were offering training to the SABC and our 4 homeland broadcasters.
Okay.
And we also had a school newspaper camp that we ran annually.
You still run that, don't
yes,
you? And
yeah.
how important is that for budding journalists? Or you're at school now, you don't know what 10 or 20 years from now is holding for you. But this type of training, what does that prepare them for?
I think what that training does, it prepares students to become critical thinkers, to be analytical, to start Because once research has shown if you have young people involved in developing their own school newsletter or participating in a debate team, what it does, it builds their self-confidence. It makes them more aware of their surroundings. It makes them ask questions that pertains how it affects them. So this project has shown that not all students enter the communication field once they're done with school or become journalists. A lot of them just become better academics at what they do. So the whole thing of the school newspaper camp is to make young people think for themselves, analyze what they engage in, but also to be critical of what affects them and what's happening around them. So I think it's a very good instrument that the Institute started way back in 1993.
Amina, I know that, I kind of always wonder with social media, with community journalism, I kind of wonder about the future of the broadsheet and the future of journalists. What's your take on it? Do you worry about it?
Yes, but I think it's a very dynamic environment that we find ourselves in South Africa, as well as in the media environment, as well as in the global environment. I think when we started off, the Institute is celebrating 25 years of its existence. We had a print division and a broadcast division. At the moment, we do multi-platform training. So whatever journalism training we do, you need to familiarize yourself. We familiarize people, if they don't know, with the digitized world, that they can do journalism on any platform, really. That is what we do. So we've tried to keep one step ahead of the times. And I must say there's a great need, for the kind of training that we do. It's basic journalism, it's quality journalism, it's the ethics of the profession as well, high quality and standards and so on. But to answer your question whether I'm worried, I think the environment in South Africa is very, as I said, dynamic and challenging. So many senior journalists and editors have left the profession because of budgetary constraints, because of the environment, not because of the change of technology. But I think the change of, prioritizing of resources. So unfortunately,
the whole advancement of technology is going to, I'm sure, already impacting on the newspaper as we know it, the broadsheets as we know it.
Yes, it does. But I think some of the newspapers, they've made provision for that. They have an online version as well. So they have the broadsheets or the tabloid form of paper, but they also have an online a very active online section of it. But I think the broadsheets will still be around for a little while. I don't know for how long. The circulations are dwindling. And I think young people, how they get their news is also important.
Absolutely.
It's they get it on their cell phones and maybe even broadcasting. Maybe on television is also something that you can get on your cell phone. And we're going to see more and more of that if we drop the cost of broadband in South Africa. The cost is still prohibitive. Almost everyone has a cell phone or 2 or 3, but I think the broadband costs are prohibitive. So that is where we are going. But to be worried, look, there's the broadsheets, but this media is so broad. There's also magazines, there's everything else. But it's also, we need to harness technology. Don't be afraid, don't run away.
Oh, absolutely.
See how it can work for us.
Yeah.
And sometimes we perhaps don't do it fast enough or we bury our head in the sand, but we just need to be aware. And it's very difficult. With the purchase, for example, of broadcast equipment, like you might know, for your television station, by the time you buy it, it's outdated.
True.
So one needs to be a step or two ahead, and it's a little difficult and capital intensive, as you can imagine. But I think basically the core is people need to be informed. We're in a knowledge-based society, and I think we need to inform ourselves whichever way possible, and also not leave people behind. We have
and simply put, I should imagine, adapt or die.
Adapt, but also we need to take the people along. We can't forget about the granny who might not have access to DSTV or access to know how, a cell phone works where she can get the information from. We need to be made aware of how we communicate and how we inform our people. That is why public broadcasting with a proper mandate, you know, educate, inform, entertain, etc., is so vitally important, needs to be properly resourced, needs to be properly run. We have to stamp out the corruption that we've seen, you know, in recent years at the SABC, for example, where I worked before. So hopefully, you know, we need to prioritize public services in whichever form, whether it is information, communication, public television, public knowledge. We need to have an informed citizenry so we can better equip ourselves, help ourselves, make the right decisions at election time.
And take the country forward.
Absolutely.
Faiza, I must commend you and both of you, because you're both on the board as well, but as the Executive Director of the IAJ, I've attended some amazing seminars. I'm wondering how you come up, you know, jointly with the rest of the board with those amazing topics. Obviously, it is, I should imagine, in light of taking journalists to the next level. But the one thing that struck me was you had a seminar on fake news. That's very important, is it not? And what's the message you want to give out there as far as fake news is concerned? How do we become discerning enough to know that this is fake and this is genuine?
I think that's crucial. We host the seminars, first of all, because we want to expose journalists. And when I talk about journalists, I talk about professional journalists, community journalists, and I also talk about citizen journalists. So those forums is open for anyone to attend. But at the same time, why we do it is we want to expose the professionals or the people in the field to continuous more research people, more experts, so that when they want to cover a topic or when they want to verify a source, they should have abundance of people and experts they can call to consult with, and not just write and publish or take it as is. Now, when we come to fake news, I think there has always been fake news. Perhaps we called it something else then.
True.
But now it's more in the fore. Everyone is busy discussing it. At times, someone will tweet something.
Oh,
you know,
and we
or
know
they
what
will
happens.
put something on Facebook. Do we just take it and publish it? How do we verify and make sure the sources are correct or the stories are correct? Now, what we have, for example, Caxton newspaper, they have an online version. They've got a huge problem. They find that their stories are taken, lifted just like that, tweaked a little bit, and put onto another website.
How can I prove that you've plagiarized my work? Is there any way in this day and age, are you able to do that?
You know what, quite interesting, Media Monitoring Africa has actually just developed, is it an app for the Press Ombudsman's Office? Where it's a Chrome app, where you can actually put it on the story and it will show you what is the original story.
The content and whether it's been copied.
Yes.
Okay, let's hold that thought. We're going to take an ad break.
Okay.
A very interesting discussion here with the ladies from the IAJ. It's Amina Frenzy and Faiza Abrams. We're talking about the space of journalism, and we are also going to be focusing a little bit on the 25th anniversary of the IAJ. Stay with us, lines are open. The Institute for the Advancement of Journalism, a very important structure in South Africa. They are, I would say, would you say you're a form of a media monitor? Do you play a media monitor role? Or is it that and also upping the game as far as journalists are concerned? Amina?
It's more upping the game. We're an NPO with all the BEE status and tax compliance and all of those company registrations that is required. We're independent, we are self-funded, which makes it very difficult. So we started 25 years ago. We did 2 independent surveys 3 years and 2 years ago to find out our relevance in the South African society, and everything points to the fact that they want more of the IAJ.
So you're very relevant, and you're here for many more years to come.
Inshallah, yes.
I mean.
Inshallah. I mean, we do training in South Africa, but also further afield. We do training recently right now we're training in Burundi. But we train in the DRC Congo, in Senegal, in
what sort
Kenya.
of training?
in Uganda journalism training.
Okay.
Journalism training for print and broadcast and multi-platform journalists. So the training is there. Also in terms of branding and advertising and things like that, how best to brand and advertise your product. So that's part of the journalism and marketing strand. But essentially we train journalists. So I think if we stick to the basics, we more, it was established in 1992 by the late veteran journalist, Mr. Alistair Sparks, and he started in 1992, 2 years before our democracy in South Africa, to really prepare journalists for the next phase, to do democratic journalism instead of the propagandistic things that we had in some instances. I'm not saying everything was propaganda then. So it's a question of being 2 steps ahead. To
There's
prepare
still a lot
people.
of propaganda as we speak.
Well, it has changed. I think we were involved in the transformation of the media, and especially in broadcasting, where I come from the SABC, we had radical transformation then. We were probably the most transformed broadcaster because we were coming from a very bad space. But at the moment, it is gone in the other direction. But hopefully, with a new board, there'll be a cleanup of the place again, and we go back to what we're supposed to do, and also exercise our mandate. So yeah, the relevance of the IAJ, sadly, I wish there were more institutions, but some training institutions have closed down. They spent a lot of money, they've invested a lot of money, they've closed down because it's a difficult space. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved as well, but we do training, but we also do quality assessing. We have accredited courses and also non-accredited courses. So, and we're flexible. We have a great database of facilitators and trainers, the best that you can get in and around South Africa that we use. And when we go to specific countries, training in the DRC Congo in French, we work with journalists and journalism institutions there. But we help co-develop the curriculum and set the standards and so on. So we work with associations in those various countries. So it's not like we parachute in to Burundi or anything like that. We work with people there. So our relevance, hopefully we can remain sustainable and relevant. We're having for the first time a fundraising event on the 19th of October, which is also commemorating 40 years of Black Wednesday, when all of those newspapers were banned and individuals were banned, and also incidentally 40 years since the death of Steve Biko coincides with 25 years of the institution. So there's a lot to commemorate.
Lots happening.
A lot happening. But prior to that, and maybe Faisal can talk more about that, you spoke earlier on about our amazing seminars. We're having an amazing seminar starting on the 18th of October on migration. And it's the keynote address is going to be delivered by Professor Himla Sudyal, who's from the Origin Center at Wits University. She's a world specialist in genetic developments and so on. So she will open it, and we will have a couple of other people there as well as speakers. So we're talking about migration. Migration, where do we all come from in the beginning? Do we all come from Krugersdorp, cradle of humankind? We went away and some of us came back, or whatever the case may be. And then we're going to have various speakers on the theme, but we're talking about local migration. So it could be from people coming from Limpopo to Johannesburg.
And the dynamics around that, because there's huge dynamics involved.
And, look at the migration, forced migration. In Africa, Africa probably has the biggest number of refugees. It's not recognized. And here you have the UK and the EU, somersaulting on how many they will allow into the country at a particular time or something like that. We have millions of refugees in Africa, and somehow we need to take care of them. And in South Africa itself, as you know, we are a migrant community as well. We have new migrants. It's constantly happening. It's people seeking opportunities. It's people fleeing, economic plight conditions, but also political conditions. And not to forget what is happening around the world. If you look at the Rohingya, if you look at Syria, if you look at the Middle East, the Palestinians are living in an open-air camp.
I think there isn't a spot in the world that can say that they're living in peace and harmony. There's hotspots all around the world. Faisal, coming to you and the focus on going forward with the IAJ, a very important seminar was the Reporting Race Conference. Let's look at the impact of that and the importance of that particular conference.
Yeah. This is the second year that we'll be having this conference. We had it last year. We do this conference in partnership with the Abdul Katrada Foundation. This year we've brought on the United Nations Information Center, UNIC. They were talking more about their Together campaign and how that relates to the SDGs, the 17 SDGs that's been adopted globally. At the same time too, our focus this year is mainly on migration. What we do is we monitor the media, all forms of media. We follow discussions and debates and topics that's happening around us, and then we take a decision, okay, this is what needs to be developed further, this is what we will talk about, and we then create a platform. We've also assessed last year where our shortcomings were. One of those were that we needed many more younger people in our seminar. We're also having live streaming because we would like community media, print, television and radio to go beyond the 2 days of the conference. We're just using this as a platform. We launched these discussions, we started debates, but we would like everyone that participates to go away from that platform and to continue back in their own spaces, the discussions and the debates.
Who should be attending?
Every citizen that's concerned about what is happening in South Africa. That would be moms that's at home, students that are at universities, unemployed youth, people that are just interested in what is happening. The more we can get into a space, what we then have is we have dialogue continuing outside. True. And people start taking more cognizance, they become more responsible, and they see each other as human beings first and foremost. In South Africa, our constitution talks about the rights of refugees. We have an immigration, Department of Home Affairs will also be participating in the debate because we want to see how we can become more effective to make sure that we don't turn on each other when something affects us.
Yes, we don't, xenophobia. Yes. We don't want to see that again.
We've seen what happens in our communities. If there's unemployment, if there's a service delivery crisis, instead of channeling our energy to the right source, we turn on those that we assume is a foreign in our community. Mm-hmm. And we're hoping that this platform will get us to start taking responsibility for ourselves, looking at how we can change our future as a collective.
We've got about 2 minutes to wrap up time. You've had an amazing journey as a journalist and a producer. I mean, you've been working for the BBC and a whole host of other big names in the industry. What stands out for you? What was your best piece of work or the piece of work that's closest to your heart, both in print and as a producer?
Well, I'm mainly a broadcaster, and I think the documentaries I've made over the years, the socio-economic, political documentaries, not only politics, but also arts and culture, etc. What stands out is working in the war years, when South Africa illegally occupied Namibia and things like that. There's a lot of work that I did there, a lot of documentaries I did there, mainly for German television. But what stands out probably as a I've worked on several documentaries, but the one that obviously would stand out is the time that I spent with Nelson Mandela. Oh, wow. I spent about 3 years with him on a documentary called Madiba, Son of Africa. So I was close to him, did all the interviews, accompanied him also on his international trips and tours, including being part of his delegation when he received the Nobel Peace Prize and when he went on his Christmas holiday, but also his first visit back to Robben Island. He was on Robben Island for 17 or 18 years before he got transferred to Pollsmoor prison. So that is where he stayed until, then Drakensberg, and then he was released. But then going back to Robben Island for the first time, and I was fortunate enough to be, part of, I was a producer on the movie, being with him, accompanying him, and accompanying him personally as well. I was in the helicopter with him, holding his hand as we landed on Robben Island, by helicopter, going into his cell and talking about it. So these are precious moments, and many other precious moments at the Nobel, Peace Prize then. It was very, very interesting and very privileged I was to be part of that delegation. So meeting with, King of Sweden and other people are very much part of his delegation, but that is international abroad. I was also with him going back to the Transkei for the first time when he returned from imprisonment. So his first visit to Transkei, I was there and I was his honored guest. So it, as I said, great honor and privilege for me also to be allowed into that culture and society. I was the only woman, literally his guest and at his feet, and everyone else, you know, were men around and so on. So I think this certainly must be a highlight to to have that privilege, to be that close and see it in a film.
And I say it again, what a lovely life, what a full life, what a rich life. You truly are fortunate. Very quickly, Faiza, highlights for you at the IAJ.
There's huge challenges. The media spaces are becoming smaller as we're moving on to the multi-platforms, but we see that there's opportunities for us to move forward and to achieve far more.
If I can just add, you know,
Sure.
we have 25 years in existence. We see
That says
the
much, doesn't it?
CEOs we are newspaper students. We see the journalists, you know, in top positions. We see the politicians that we have trained when they were trade unionists, you know, in Parliament and elsewhere. So if you see the results right around you and people recognize you and say, you don't remember me, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago, this is what you did.
So much to celebrate, and that's where we leave it. Thank you indeed for your time. That was Amina Frenzy and Faiza Abrams from the IAJ, and time for us to wrap up. Thank you for being with us till Saturday morning at the same time as always. It is Khudafiz from me, Julie Alli, and a big thank you to the production team.
يا هلا 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا يا هلا ويا